Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome back to Out of the Abyss. With you as always, Lot, Pip, and Jake.
Hey.
What's up, boys? How we doing?
Excellent. I wanted to throw something at you guys that I've been cooking up for a little bit. I've mentioned it a little, especially in the Men in Black episode. But today I want to take a look at the Mothman and John Keel. Have you guys heard about the Mothman?
I've only heard it from the podcast.
Of him?
Really? Only from the podcast?
Yeah.
That was actually lightly surprising. He's one of the more commonly known cryptids, is the Mothman.
Yeah, I think, what was the year? 2008? The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere. It's like a big blockbuster.
I
never watched it.
I feel like I've watched that 3 times, but I have no memory of it.
I'm going to be honest with you. In my opinion, not a great movie. I didn't particularly care for it. But the actual story, awesome. Some of the books that I've read for this podcast have been awful. Really bad. No offense to the authors, but they weren't writers. They were just people writing down their experiences. But the Mothman Prophecies is so good. It is fucking incredible. If, like, any of our listeners that haven't read it, go out and buy it and read it. You will not regret it. Like,
Is there any tie-in with Injured Cole and the Mothman, or are those two separate entities? I can't remember. I feel like I've seen those tied together before, though.
You will see.
Oh. Mysterious.
But, like, to give you an idea of how good this book is, so he opens with a story about this couple who lived in Virginia, just by Point Pleasant. They were farmers. And one night, late at night, there was a knock on their door, and they opened it, and it was this big, tall guy, big beard, long hair. This was in 1966, so it was just before beards and long hair became, like, a thing that people did.
Okay.
So he shows up, he's wearing this long black coat, says, may I use your phone? And the lady kind of freaks out, calls for her husband. Her husband comes up, no phone here. And the guy leaves, apologizes and leaves. And they started telling their friends that, like, the devil visited us one night. So it was like, it was super freaky. They couldn't think of, like, the devil visited us. And John Keel says, and unfortunately those two people were two of the people who would wind up dead as the result of the Silver Bridge collapsing several months later.
Oh.
Yikes.
That spanned the Ohio River. But neighbors remembered that they kept talking about how the devil had visited them one rainy night. And it kind of birthed like a legend. John Keel goes on to explain that his car had broken down driving through West Virginia, and as a result, he was having to walk door to door asking people if he could use their phone to get a tow truck, because he was like 12 miles out of town still. And that was actually him. That was just like needing help, and he was just out of college and had this brand new big beard, and it's just like it's so wild.
As the fucking Reaper or something, dude.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't mean to start a fucking urban legend. My car just broke down. Like,
damn, imagine having vibes so whack you create a cryptid story.
Yeah, but that's like the first 2 pages of this book are like him telling that story, and it's all uphill from there.
I'll be honest, that's low-key the sort of vibe I'm going for. You'll meet me and like, I just had a fucking third encounter of the strange kind.
You must have been such a delight in elementary school. So what do you want to be when you grow up? Uncomfortable. So, Mothman Prophecies.
Thanks.
Mothman Prophecies tells the story of a large winged humanoid that was spotted around Point Pleasant, West Virginia during 1966 and 67.
I love how ironic the name of Point Pleasant is, because that's just like, that sounds like something from a story where you hear it and you go, oh, something bad's going to happen at Point Pleasant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it has that Stepford Wives feel to it. where it's like, oh, it's Point Pleasant because something sinister is going on behind the scenes. But it was just a nice like West Virginia town, right on the Ohio River.
Yeah. Country roads, take me home.
Yeah, every
Small.
time you say West Virginia, it's like it's all I can think about. I'm gonna be real, and it's taken all of me to not bring it up. So thank you for doing it for me.
Yeah. To the place I belong.
So while the story's about
Virginia.
Mothman,
Sorry.
oh, so were we going to continue singing? I'll wait.
I can't. That song is a banger, and I'm powerless to fight it.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Too white.
Taking a drink.
It's like when the YMCA song comes out, dude. Like, can you dance? Can you not dance, rather? You have to.
Or Journey.
Or Journey, yeah.
I need a white people playlist master mix.
Steely Dan.
Chicken dance.
Phil Collins.
Fuck. No.
Phil Collins, yeah. Everything by Hall & Oates, literally ever.
I love Hall &
Yeah,
Oates.
exactly. That's why I said it. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, dude, it fits. Okay, anyway. Let's move on.
Moving on.
So let's take the small step from Hall & Oates to Mothman. So
Nice segue. Yeah.
the story's about Mothman, but Mothman works in mysterious ways. And this story involves more than just the one paranormal angle. Men in Black, UFOs, even tulpas are going to wind up getting mentioned in this case.
That's a lot of shit.
To follow about the same timeline as the book, what I'm gonna present is the events of the book, but glossed over so that this isn't 12 hours long. It might wind up being one or two episodes, and then a third episode discussing different theories that people have had in the fallout. We'll see what happens. But,
and then maybe a fourth or fifth, really just detailing the events, and then
best of Mothman compilations, and then
Entire YouTube channel called Mothman Theories.
Mothman
there you
pranks.
go. Out of the Mothman.
You gotta do the
abyss.
game theory thing every time, though. That's just the theory.
But that's
Mothman
just
theory?
a Mothman prophecy.
Yep.
So, we open with our favorite lady from the Men in Black episode, Mary Hire, on December 22nd, 1967. Mary, if you remember, she got that weird guy who came in and asked questions and then like took a pen and was like, "What is this?" And she was like,
the small dudes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the really this weird
Is
small
the same one
dude.
that got followed or whatever as well, right? Or is that someone else?
Yeah, people were like taking pictures of her outside her house and stuff.
Yeah.
She had the visitors from the MIB episode, of course, but the morning of December 22nd, 1967, she had a pair of visitors, odd men in dark suits. They were short, with dark complexions, and she says that they were possibly Asian. They asked about flying saucer activity in the area, and Mary handed them the big fat file that she kept of all the news clippings and pictures that she'd collected. This one guy grabs it, and he just like glances at it. He just leafs through it, doesn't even really pay any attention, gives it back, says, "Has anyone told you not to publish these reports?" She's like, "No." And he asks, "What would you do if someone ordered you to stop writing about flying saucers?" "I'd tell them to go to hell," is what Mary says. Direct quote from the book, by the way. Balls of steel on this lady. "I'd tell them to go to hell." So she looks down at her file to put it away. She looks up, guys are just gone. But even those weren't the only visitors of the day. This guy appeared who would keep on popping up. He was average height, about 5'7", with dark, unruly hair and a dark complexion. His hands were really weird. They had these long, tapering, bony fingers. His suit was cheap and badly fitted and a couple of years out of style. And he had no, overcoat, which was really weird in December on, the coast, or close to the coast.
This sounds like Slenderman PI or something, dude.
Yes! Yeah.
Does a little bit.
But short. Only 5'7". We would all tower over this man.
Yeah. Short Slenderman, that's actually more terrifying. Now
We
that I
know
think
he's
about
mad.
that.
Slender manlet.
Slender dwarf, dude.
When we make shirts, I insist that the first one we make is Slender Manlet.
It's just that photo manipulation thing where they're just really short and squat, but it's just a picture of Slenderman.
The short Keanu.
Oh,
He also-
Short Keanu is one of the best memes to come out of that shit game, dude. I missed that.
So this
It's a
guy
good
said
meme.
he said his name was Jack Brown, and he was a UFO researcher, and he was trying to talk, but it was really messed up. Like, he knew the words, but he was having trouble stringing them together. So this is, by the way, this is written directly from the book. This isn't me putting it on. This is exactly what the book says. What would you do if someone ordered you to stop printing UFO stories? And
It's
Mary's
really weird.
yeah, Mary's freaked the fuck out, and she asked if he was with the guys from earlier, and he's like, no, I'm alone. I'm a friend of Gray Barker. Gray Barker was like a pretty well-known UFO investigator and author, and Mary knew him pretty well. So Mary asked if he knew John Keel, because they were all kind of part of like a big writing circle, and this dude
Right.
gets mad. That I used to think the world of Keel. Then a few minutes ago, I bought a magazine. He has an article in it. He says he's seen UFOs himself. He's a liar. Nothing. It's just one of.
It's so uncomfortable to listen to.
Yeah, when someone gets that mad about something and instantly, it makes you suspicious, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Just right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's like the comparison I like to draw is when you guys ever read The Telltale Heart?
I remember
I
that
never
one,
have.
yeah.
So you know, like, hopefully, like the gist of the story about, like, guy murders a dude and then hides his
Yeah, I'm
body under the
familiar with
floorboards.
the more or less of the story. I've just never read it.
The opening line of the story is literally the main character be like, listen, I'm not crazy. And it's like, nothing makes me feel more faith in you as a narrator than you telling me that you're not crazy. Thanks for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy's talking as though, like, you ever see the thing when someone is, like, partially absorbed by the thing and they're still trying to talk, but they can't quite get it out straight?
It's how I start talking when I get really excited about a topic and start tripping over my own words,
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
except without proper inflections.
Inflections are hard to communicate in text anyways. For all we know, he had absolute whack inflections, or perfect inflections.
Well, they said the inflections were a little off, so I'm trying to imitate that, but... So, this back and forth, by the way, this weird back and forth continued for a little bit, and Mary kept trying with increasing bluntness to get this guy the fuck out of her office. It had been a really long day. Because that day was the day after the Silver Bridge disaster that I mentioned, where the bridge over the Ohio River collapsed, killing 46 people. And she kind of figured that everyone had bigger fucking things to worry about.
Right.
Listen, I know there might be other life in the universe, but a bunch of people just died. Give me a day, you small weirdo.
Yeah, and she's working with the news.
Oh, wow.
So she's had a lot to do. Like, it's been busy. And interestingly, so Jack Brown seems like just like a random generic name. But John Keel noted in the book that there's a precedent for bizarre visitors claiming extremely common names like Smith, Kelly, Jones, or Brown throughout American history.
Yeah, I can
Keel-
see that. Trying
Keel
to sound
tells-
as normal as possible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard this.
You go for which isn't that exactly the thing that, like, the Men in Black do? Like, try to be
Yeah.
normal and then be too normal?
Yeah.
Normal everyman, Robert Smith.
Like,
Because, I mean, even if you remember the name, you try and look it up, you get a bajillion results to just obfuscate. Obfuscate? That's the word.
I don't mean to go roast mode, but this is how I imagine it would be if Pip was invited to have, like, dinner at the White House, like, with foreign dignitaries and shit.
How do you do, fellow
Yeah, like
politics.
you'd be like, I gotta keep this shit together, and as a result, everyone would just look at you and be like, why is this guy a fucking robot? Like what?
Yeah, I'm in there. Hello, Mr. Biden, and inside I'm trying to don't tell him about how you figured out how to weave a sweater out of Lysol wipes.
Please tell me it's an actual skill you have.
I figured it out yesterday, and it was my whole fucking day because I tried to just not think about it like a normal human person.
If you ever meet the president,
You
offer
cut
him
it
a
into
woven
strips
hat.
and you weave them into ropes, and then you knit with the ropes to make a sweater.
Why Lysol wipes?
Because it's sort of a fabric.
just hideous chemical burns like all over your upper body. Yeah, but nobody saw my nipples.
It's the cleanest shirt in the land.
That's true.
You can get
In
about
these-
you can get about 3 feet of yarn from one Lysol wipe.
I think when the next pandemic hits, you could probably sell Lysol shirts for a significant markup.
Yeah,
Oh
I
man,
can see
just
it.
the sheer work alone of making them, I'd sell it as an art piece, dude.
Dude, I'm not even joking. Like, shit hits like it did last time and everyone freaks out, and you can just be like, you need to go to the grocery store? Well, I have knitted you a full Lysol wipe bodysuit. Complete. It's got the booties, it's got the hand gloves, absolute
Dude, I'm just
confidence.
thinking like one of those morph
got-
suits, but just like skin tight with Lysol. Oh god, that sounds awful. Everything
Yeah,
about that just sounds so bad.
It would look more like it was knitted.
I was kind of picturing like a BDSM outfit. Like maybe for the mouth,
I
you could
was
get them
thinking
like a
like
zipper
the
that you could
prospector
do it
pajamas with the little butt pouch that with the buttons
Oh,
that
yeah,
unfold.
Little Lysol butt pouch.
Dude, what if people start ordering custom ones from you? You're filling out orders like they're fucking fursuits. You're making one with like a unicorn horn and like a horse tail and like hooves for feet and hands.
I gotta just automate the process, dude, making textiles out of them. Just
You
buy
think-
packs of Lysol wipes like a hopper and just plug it into the machine and just spools of Lysol yarn come out.
You think there'd be any legal action from Lysol themselves, dude? Probably.
I think it depends how heavily you market it.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
you don't call it Lysol, you just call it a sanitary wipe sweater.
That's
Why
God, I hope you
royalty-free
don't call it that.
horrible sweater?
I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to be buying Lysol wipes for this anyways. That's a brand name. You want to go no-name disinfecting wipes.
The disinfecting sweater, yeah, dude.
How did we get on this?
yeah, that was a tangent right there, dude. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
see,
what
that's-
reel it in.
And that's why I would not be able to pose as a real human at the White House.
Right. That's where we started. Okay.
So, talking about people with weird visitors with extremely common names. Keel tells of an event on April 22nd, 1897, in Rockland, Texas, where an oblong machine with wings and lights landed on the farm of John Barclay. And by the way, I feel like owning a farm in Rockland is like the bottom of the totem pole. Like, as a farmer, you're done. Anyways, this thing lands, and Barclay goes to investigate. And a totally normal looking dude just comes over, hands him a crisp $10 bill, and asks for oil and tools. The guy asks who he was. Like, Barclay asked who he was, and the random guy's like, never mind about my name. Call it Smith.
Call it Smith.
Yeah.
Call my name Smith.
My
I
name
mean,
is
that's
Smith.
a pretty normal turn of phrase, honestly. That's not too bad.
Really? Because that feels like the least human use of grammar I've ever heard.
No, that's fairly normal.
Now, I don't know, now that I'm reinvestigating it, I will say, honestly, would you not say call me Smith?
I mean, like, sure, but like, be like, don't worry about my name, just call it Smith, right? Like, call it whatever, and like, it sounds like pretty normal speech to me.
That's fair.
That's
I might
not a
be
red flag.
overanalyzing. I didn't
I
think
mean,
about,
it's
like, I
something
didn't
that
think about
would
it till
easily fly under the radar. But if you're looking at it, it seems if you look
Yeah,
hard at
if
it,
you think about it super hard, then yeah, it can sound a little weird. But I mean, we were talking about the word gallon before, right? That word sounds pretty fucking weird too. Not everyone who uses that word's a fucking alien, dude.
True.
Yeah, I mean, we're metric, not imperial, mostly.
Mostly. But I mean, like, regardless, it's not that strange.
But yeah, it's one of the. It could just be one of those things where you look at a word and kind of break it down in your head, and all of a sudden it's nonsense. That might just be what I'm doing with it. I might just be looking at it too much. Now, Jack Brown, the guy that visited Mary Hire, would re-enter the story after approaching Mary's niece, Connie. He knocked on Connie's door and introduced himself with, "I'm a friend of Mary Hire's." And he stood there and he freaked the family out a bit because he was like asking about Mary and asking about Keel. But most of his questions, they didn't make sense, or they were just stupid. Like, he would just garble words out and then look at them, and the family would be like, "What?"
You know what? Maybe they just lobotomized someone and made him into an agent.
This guy did, though, ask. He said, "What do you think what would Mary Hire do if someone told her to stop writing about UFOs?" "She'd probably tell them to drop dead," Connie responded, which, by the way, she told them to go to hell, Connie. You're a terrible niece.
Terrible.
Can't believe you wouldn't know that. After rambling for a bit, Jack Brown just drove off in this loud-ass car, and Connie instantly ran in to call her Aunt Mary to tell her about him. Both Connie and her husband had noticed the man's long-fingered hands, and he had these weird ears that they couldn't point out what was weird about them, and he had these strange mannerisms. But even more oddly, he hadn't asked Connie about the question that she had thought was coming, the question that people always came to ask her about. Because in 1966, John Keel had met Connie previously, because Connie had conjunctivitis, pink eye. Yeah, that might seem like a weird and gross reason to meet someone. Like, that's not... Yeah. People aren't usually like, "Oh, my niece has pink eye. Would you like to meet her?"
Yeah, exactly.
But this was Klieg conjunctivitis. So, regular conjunctivitis, fecal matter in the eye, right? Everyone's made the poop in the eye jokes.
Yeah,
right.
The fart on the pillow joke.
Yeah, but Klieg conjunctivitis is caused by ultraviolet rays. It's basically eye burn. It's what you get when you're up in the Arctic with 24 hours of daylight reflecting off all the flat snow cover, or like when you just lay on a beach to sunbathe but you don't have sunglasses.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's interesting because it gets reported a lot after people witness UFO activities. And even more interesting, Connie hadn't seen a UFO to get it. What had happened is that she'd been driving home from church at 10:30 a.m. Sunday, November 27th, 1966, when as she was passing a golf course, she suddenly saw a huge gray figure. It was like a man, but much, much larger. Remember, this is 10:30 a.m. This is in broad daylight. This thing was at least 7 feet tall and very broad.
Jesus.
But what really grabbed Connie wasn't its size, but its eyes. Large, round, brightly glowing red eyes that focused on her with a sort of hypnotic sensation. She
like
slowed.
It or not, that is peak performance, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. She slowed, and as she stared, giant wings, 10 feet wide, spread from its back as it rose from the ground. But the wings didn't flap. It just spread the wings and then hovered upwards. And then it went towards Connie's car, swooping down just as she slammed on the accelerator, like her brain finally snapped out of it, adrenaline and hysteria forcing her stunned body to respond to the imminent threat. This was the first really big sighting, but after this, over 100 people would see the same thing over the winter of 66, 67.
Which weird is that's America, right?
Yeah.
Nobody shot it?
I think they tried at one point.
I feel like a lot of people's first instinct when with the unknown is, what if I killed it? Then I feel safe.
It depends on scale, right? Like if you're looking at something like that, my first instinct is to get the fuck out of there, right? Not fight it.
First thought, that's weird. Second thought, hold on. Third thought, holy fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Final thought, I am leaving.
Yeah, I want to be wherever that thing is. Yeah, thanks.
After that, I was like, well, maybe I can defend myself.
Yeah.
So, Mothman is weird, but this wasn't the first flying humanoid that the world has seen. Between 1877 and 1880, there was a flying man who would appear around Brooklyn, New York. He had wings and would do tricks over Coney Island. And this isn't like an apocryphal story that people tell. We have a record of it from the New York Times. From September 12th, 1880. He was reportedly...
He just fucking does tricks, just hangs out?
Yeah, he was seen by tons of
That's sick, though.
The people's champion. The dude vibing over the sky.
He would fly at an altitude of 1,000 feet, sporting bat-like wings and making swimming motions. He was dressed in all black and stood out against the sky. At one point, I think someone said that he swooped low and he was flying towards New Jersey with, someone called it a cruel and determined expression. Mexico.
I gotta... Well, if you're swooping and you're like doing a man bat thing, listen, you ever ride a bike too fast into the wind?
Get the wobbles?
Well, I mean, it's just a lot of like wind at your face. Of course you're gonna like squint and like scrunch your face, right? I mean, that could easily be construed as just a determined expression. It's just dealing with the wind as you swoop.
True.
Could be.
Oh, maybe them big eyes are just goggles.
Maybe. Mexico has stories about Icals, tiny little dudes, all black, who can fly and live in caves and kidnap people. Plenty of the gods from Babylon and Egypt had wings, and angels are often portrayed with wings as well. But
I miss the old portrayal of angels.
well, it depends on which part of the angel or what part of the Bible you're referring to, because even in the Old Testament, remember, some of the angels are like those weird, like what you're thinking about, the wheels with the wings and the eyes and the
flaming
fire.
wheels of eyes.
But
they also had wings.
But there were also angels that like had supper with Lot. So there were obviously like more human angels.
Yep.
In early January 1948, a Mrs. Zykowski in Chehalis, Washington, reported seeing a man with silver wings maneuvering about 200 feet above her barn. So this is like 70 years later. This is just after World War II. The Air Force was laughing at her until a group of laundry workers south of Chehalis reported a trio of birdmen circling the city at an altitude of about 250 feet. Often,
Weird.
these winged people would be spotted in areas also experiencing a rise in UFO sightings, which makes it interesting that there was a UFO flap happening in Point Pleasant at about the time that all of this started. One lady, who Keel calls Mrs. Kelly, was waiting for her children at the school in town in March 1966 when she saw a glittering metallic disc by the school playground. A door opened at its rim, and a man was suddenly hovering in the air outside the doorway. He had long, silvery hair and a silvery, skin-tight suit. She was distracted briefly by her children arriving at the car, like they came out of school, Mommy, Mommy, and they like run to the car, and she looks down, and then she looks back up in the craft, and the person were just gone.
That's so fucking strange, dude. By the way, so when you said silvery skin-tight suit, I'm trying to find the image. Hold on. I'll get it. Keep on going. I'll post it in Discord in a second.
Is he gonna picture a David Bowie or something?
He sure did love space, didn't he?
So that was in March of 66. The first Mothman with Connie was in November of 1966. But what kind of kicked off the crazy, because there was a UFO flap going on for a while. People were seeing discs, they were seeing balls, they were seeing lights, they were seeing Tic Tacs, all the classic.
Wait, Tic Tacs?
Yeah, little like like a Tic Tac candy, that shape of craft.
Oh, right.
All kinds of stuff. But what really kicked things off, John Vujnovic, an attorney from West Virginia, saw something that he couldn't explain on October 7th, 1966, so about a month before the first Mothman sighting. He said, and this is a direct quote, "The object had an outer circular light that glowed, but there was no sound at all. I stopped the car for a better look, and the thing started coming down the highway. I think it was about 400 feet in the air. At one time, it looked as if there were windows in the craft. And after it got past, we could see a revolving light. The outer glow of the light made a fast, flickering type of light as the object was hovering." And at around the same time, the Mrs. Kelly, the one who saw like the dude, she lived on the edge of a gully in an area with her kids, and she was seeing lights hovering over the ground in the gully every night, and she would pick up her phone to try to call someone and tell them, but her phone wouldn't work, or sometimes it would ring and then she'd pick it up, and the only thing she'd hear was a Morse code style beeping when she answered.
It's like a fucking horror movie, dude. I would just move, honestly. I would just leave.
You got to record that.
Yeah. But I'm moving though.
If you encounter any weird shit, you gotta condition yourself so your first instinct is to record it and document it to better understand
I prefer to live. You know, I got shit going on in my life. If I see
Oh
weird
no!
shit, I'm just moving, dude.
The Morse code in my phone will abduct me.
No, but the weird lights outside that are making my phone do Morse code instead of be a fucking telephone probably will.
Oh my god!
How do you know that it's them? You've got no evidence. If you fully document it, maybe you can understand.
I mean, you see weird thing and then you experience weird phone. You can kind of put two and two together, right?
Oh my god, these beeps, these aren't letters, these numbers, it's...
Oh my god, these aliens are sexting me.
8675309, you son of a bitch!
It always comes back to you.
So, in an extra odd encounter. So, what we've been experiencing so far, right? Odd.
Normal
this,
odd.
extra odd.
Like, give me a number, dude.
Dude, 8.
8.
That's pretty odd.
In an extra odd encounter, one man, this is November 2nd, 1966. Remember that date, November 2nd, 1966. Was driving home with a friend to Point Pleasant from their work, driving home with a friend to Point Pleasant from their work site in Ohio, when, as they neared Parkersburg, West Virginia, an elongated object appeared in the sky and floated down in front of them. It was kind of like a big cylinder. They stopped the car, and a normal-looking guy in a black coat came out of the craft, with his arms folded so that he could hide his hands in his armpits. He had a big, wide grin on his face, and he approached and asked the men who they were, where they were from, where they were going, and what time it was. Then, after getting some answers, he went back to the cylinder, got in, and just fucking flew off. And the workers they decided not to talk about this, right? They were discussing it, and they were like, we're just gonna sound nuts. Like, don't tell anyone about this. But one guy couldn't handle the secret. He was having nightmares. He was drinking heavily, which was unlike him. And eventually he broke and he told Mary Hire, which is how we know about it. And Mary draws up an article. She gives him a follow-up call a couple weeks later. And the man begs Mary not to print the story. He claimed that a scientist from Ohio had appeared and said that it would be better to forget the whole thing. And Mary was asking him, like, you know, who was the scientist? Did he show you any credentials? And the guy was like, no, but he seemed to know what he was talking about. And like, he had all the specifics of like what I saw and all of that. And he just came and, you know, he didn't even threaten the guy. He just said, you know, it would be better if you just forgot what happened.
The creepy smiling man sounds a lot like Indrid Cold.
Doesn't it?
But I don't remember him flying.
But that story that was told to Mary Hire might have just been jotted down and forgotten, except that it happened to another man on the same road. And that man had gone to the police. That man was Woodrow Derenberger. Woodrow was driving along that same highway on November 2nd, 1966, when he looked back and saw a car approaching. So he slows down a little, pull over, let him pass, when he saw something astonishing. As it pulled beside him, he realized it wasn't a car. He said that it was shaped like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck, and then enlarging in a great bulge in the center. It was charcoal gray, and Woodrow slammed on the brakes. Like, what is this? The vehicle, stops beside him, positions across the road in front of his car so that he can't really drive anywhere. And then a door slides open, and a man steps out, about 5 foot 10 inches, with dark hair combed back, dark tan skin, and a broad grin. He had his arms crossed in front of him, with his hands tucked into the armpits of his black suit coat, but Woodrow thought that he could see something green glittering underneath the coat. And as he stepped forward, his vehicle levitated upwards to about 40 feet in the air, out of the way of any potential traffic. "I mean you no harm. I come from a country much less powerful than yours," the man told Woodrow, but not by speaking. He seemed to be projecting his questions right into Woodrow's brain. He asked Woody's name. "I'm going to call him Woody from now on. I'm tired of Woodrow." And Woody told him. And the guy responds with, "My name is Cold. I sleep, breathe, and bleed, even as you do." He asked a bunch of odd questions about the nearby city, where he was like, "What is that?" And Woody was like, that's a city. It's where people get together to, do stuff. And he would be like, "Where I'm from, they are called gatherings," and stuff like that. After asking these questions, he tells Woody to report the encounter to the authorities. Cold said that later, at a time of his choosing, he would step forward to confirm the report. Then, he told Woody that he would talk to him again, stepped back into his craft, and left. And when the police were asking people, several people that were questioned that night do recall seeing a man speaking to another man in a panel-sided van on that stretch of highway. Several of those people also reported seeing the vehicle, describing it much the same way as Woody did. Woody's life, as often happens with people who see something strange, went to shit. He started getting weird phone calls, the expected crank calls, a couple of threatening calls, but most oddly, calls that had nothing but eerie electronic noises and Morse code style beeps.
God, dude, I hate that. That's like one of my biggest fears, dude.
God, I just had like the weirdest deja vu from when I was a kid trying to tune the radio late at night, and it found a station that was not a normal station that like we had found, and it was just like weird beeps and sounds for like a few minutes.
You found a fucking number station.
Apparently, and I could never find it again.
They go in and out. Some of them are constant, but a lot of them are not.
Yep.
Weird.
So several days later, Cold would indeed contact Woody again. Woody was at home when he felt a chill, and then he felt Cold's words in his head, just like that night, even though he couldn't see him anywhere. Cold told Woody that he was from the planet Lanulos in the galaxy of Ganymede. He said that Lanulos was similar to Earth, with plants and animals and seasons. Cold said that he had a wife named Kimmy, Kimi, and 2 sons. And after a little bit more, like, generic background info, Cold warned Woody to brace himself because withdrawal would be painful. Suddenly, Woody felt a sharp pain in his temple, and Cold's inexplicable presence was gone. A few weeks later, 2 men in ill-fitting suits would visit his hometown, which wasn't Point Pleasant. It was, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like 20 miles away. Like, it was in the same region of, like, towns, the same little cluster.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
And they would go door to door claiming to be salesmen, except at each house they said they sold a different thing. First, they were vacuum salesmen. Next house, they say, oh, we're Bible salesmen. And the next one, they say, oh, we're Mormon missionaries. But they didn't ever seem to want to sell anything. Instead, they'd get into the house and then start asking questions about Woody, about his past, what kind of person was, and most importantly, whether people believed his story of an encounter.
Believe it more that weirdos in suits are here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude.
About the time that this was happening, mid-November of 66, this is right about the time that Mothman starts appearing. Just after, I think. Gray Barker, the investigator we mentioned earlier, was in the area because he'd gotten a call from a man who was telling him an unusual story. This guy had a very sad 6-year-old son on his hands. I think in the book it says that Gray Barker was sitting there and, Dad had called him in to tell him this story. And the 6-year-old comes up to him all sad with his teddy bear and is like, Mister, are you going to bring back old Bandit? And his dad has to, bring him off to bed. And the kid's, on the verge of tears. And it's because their dog Bandit had gone missing after a really bizarre sighting. The man was watching TV when an odd herringbone pattern appeared on the TV, with the sound becoming a loud electronic whine. Outside on the porch, Bandit began to howl. The man went outside and shone his flashlight towards where the dog was pointedly staring, and he saw 2 glowing red eyes. As soon as the flashlight touched them, Bandit snarled and ran at them. And the guy was too scared to follow, and I don't really blame him.
Yeah, no.
Valid.
It's like the Skinwalker Ranch one, where the dogs ran off, chasing the blue ball, and then they just heard the barks stopped, and there was a sharp yelp, and it was silent. And they were like, you know what? We'll check it in the morning. I don't blame them. So that night, the guy sleeps with a loaded gun, and the next morning goes to check the scene. He finds dog prints leading from the porch to the barn where the eyes had been. But then the tracks just vanish. They lead from the porch off to the barn, and then they circle a couple times as though the dog had been chasing its own tail, and then just nothing. But
where did it go?
Well, the next sighting actually featured kind of as a small detail, a dead dog. See, a pair of couples.
Was it the same dog? Same kind of dog?
I mean, I have no idea. Keel did not tell me that.
I will say Bandit is a very dog name.
Yeah, it is.
Dog name. My dad has a dog named Bandit, actually.
Exactly. Yep. Very dog name.
So a pair of couples were driving out on some side roads, like 2 sets, 4 people in a car just driving, because that's
Just
what
a
people
couple of
did for
couples,
fun before the internet. They just drive around.
So,
And one of the
Cruising.
ladies, Linda, gasped. So everyone looks over into the darkness, and they saw, wait for it, 2 red circles. But the circles started to move forward, kind of in a bobbing motion, and the people in the car realized that the red lights were actually the eyes of some giant thing moving at them. Later,
get
they
the
would
fuck
claim,
out of the way, dude. Don't be there.
Later, they'd claim that the thing was 6.5 to 7 feet tall,
definitely
extremely
don't be there.
broad, with big wings as well as those big hypnotic eyes. It was gray, and as they watched, it turned away from them and went for the door of an abandoned power plant nearby. So these people freak out. They slam on the accelerator. They're getting the fuck out of there. But as they drive past a small hill that was like a little ways away, they saw the creature, or another one like it, standing on top of the hill, spreading its wings, taking to the air, and coming after them. What followed, the teenagers claimed, was that despite doing speeds of 100 miles an hour, this thing kept up. It didn't flap its wings, and its movement made no noise, although one of the ladies claimed that it squeaked like a big mouse.
Or
It
like
followed
Morse
them.
code.
It followed them all the way to city limits.
Squeaky code, dude.
Mouse code?
No.
And one of the terrorized motorists noted that while on the way out of the city, they'd seen a dead dog by the road, On their way back in, the dog was no longer there, just a couple of minutes later. So they go to the
That's
police.
fucking terrifying, dude. Could you imagine this fucking thing? This gigantic fucking thing. It's so big and it's so fast, but it's just silent? Oh god, that's actually terrifying.
Yeah. So
Yeah, the absence of things you would expect to be there is just as scary as some things.
Yeah, exactly.
and it's obvious to see why this got made into a horror movie, because holy fuck,
Yeah, dude, actually.
it's got it all.
Yeah.
So they go to the police, and the police take them seriously. The officers even vouched for the kids. They say, I've known these kids their whole lives. They've never been in trouble, and they were really scared that night, to quote Deputy Millard Halstead. So, Halstead, who apparently has great big balls, goes out to the road to check it out. He gets there, and he finds the abandoned power plant, but nothing was amiss. So he flicks on his radio to communicate with dispatch, and a loud, high-pitched sound came out of the box, drowning out the dispatcher. And Halstead said that he definitely felt that something was wrong. Like, he was like, I believe these kids. Like, something's going on up here. I'm not alone up here.
Yeah.
Something strange is happening. Yeah, that's fair. We're like, hey, dispatch, there's nothing on. And it just, like, squeals at you, and it's just weird noise.
You wanna know?
JK, dude.
That's an omen.
You want to know how spooked they were? The next morning, the police held a press conference and told everyone about this event. Like, they took it so seriously that they were like, everyone needs to know what's happening.
God.
This sent Point Pleasant into a less than pleasant state of panic,
Boo.
which sets the stage perfectly for part 2 next week.
Oh, shut the fuck up, dude. Oh, I hate it. Oh, we're just talking about cliffhanger stories before this. I had a feeling this was gonna do it too.
I mean, we were sort of warned.
Sort of warned. I didn't expect it to be like that, though.
That's a well done cliffhanger.
It is a well done
did it
cliffhanger. I'm
perfectly.
fucking mad about it.
It's author that I got Rick into reading. He writes, and he likes to end his books on cliffhangers, but he DMs for D&D sessions. And he has a quote where he was saying that his objective is to end every session right at a point that makes everyone at the table start screaming. That's how he knows that he did it just right. Is if everyone else at the table's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Yeah, good night."
Alright, see you guys next week.
That's how you do it, though. That's how you keep people invested in the story.
Yeah, true.
So let's hear
what
it.
happened to my D&D sesh.
Pip, Jake, what are your thoughts on the Mothman so far?
The Mothman cometh. I want it to be true. I also sort of want to do a Mothman-like cosplay and just spook people by the highway.
So, I'll admit, it started off pretty, like, whatever for me. Just another one of those, like, typical crazy people seeing alien things. But, like, it's definitely a good story, right? That's kind of where I've ended up. And I don't... Like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? Just like it being so big and making no noise. Like, all the other weird shit that's happened around that. Like,
Well, that's par for the course.
is it?
Not having the weird shit be not fully explained. Yeah, that's par for the course.
Yeah, but, like, that's kind of my point, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, therefore I'm like, I don't really know,
Yeah. We don't actually have experience with something like that, so it's like,
Yet.
huh.
Yeah, sure, yet.
I'm so hyped for next week. Oh my god.
Oh, man. It's good. I am excited. I'm into it. There's less Indrid Cold there than I expected, because I had heard some other stories of just like... Well, yeah, I'd heard like him putting his thoughts into your head to talk, but I've heard stories of people having like extreme nausea and like strange amnesia for extended periods of time afterwards.
Yeah, and like shit like that, like it doesn't, like I don't get it, I'm pretty like skeptical about those things, right? As you guys know, but like,
Oh yeah.
it just doesn't make any fucking sense.
May I
My
posit-
favorite stuff with all these weird things is like, if you assume it to be true, that is valuable information about things that are possible.
Sure, yeah.
So
But I need
there-
to understand why it happens and like how it happens, right? For it to actually be true to me. You feel me?
So there's two big theories that I think you might be interested in regarding high strangeness. One of them is the idea that what people experience stuff like this, what actually happened, hear me out, is that they were abducted by aliens.
Okay.
And the idea is that aliens come down, let's assume that they've got technology. They can fly in spaceships, and the idea is that what they would do is come down, scoop you up, do their shit, wipe that memory, like that period of time, and then just put you back. And your brain then just fills that space.
Yeah, it just doesn't know what to do, so it just puts random shit in, basically. Right?
So it's why you get all that weird. Whitley Strieber in Communion talks about, like, he has this vivid memory of like an owl that was outside his window that just like turned its head and looked him in the eye and then just like stared at him all night.
It's pretty spooky, actually.
Yeah, and like stuff.
Owls
like,
are weird
scary.
fucking animals, dude. Everything about
Yeah.
them is just fucking creepy.
I love them, dude. They're like the cats of birds.
But that's one, and the second one is kind of a theory put forth by ufologist Jacques Vallée, who basically says that I don't want to put words in his mouth because I need to read more of his text, but the general theme is that UFOs and phenomena like that are not real, in the sense that they existed briefly and people saw them, but they exist as a manifestation of people's belief or fear in them.
So you topoed yourself an alien encounter?
Yeah.
Because it
Okay.
didn't seem like some of these people... Because some of the people that have alien encounters and close encounters are not, like, notable firm believers. They're just dudes who had some crazy shit happen.
True,
Which
but
seems not in line with that.
that's where we get to start talking about things like the human collective unconsciousness and how it's possible
fan of
that
that.
kind of, ideas that have been kind of put out there by multiple people kind of gain steam and get energy attached to them as people think about them and eventually kind of become manifestations.
Ooh, that's a good one, but I think that's a whole other topic for another episode.
That is, I could do 800 episodes talking about Jacques Vallée's fucking, and at the end of it, we'd all be dumber.
Fascinating. That only makes me want to learn it more.
I love alien stuff. We could spend so much time learning so many things, and at the end of it, we'd have learned nothing useful. It's the best.
That's so good, dude.
So, to wrap it up, from all of us to you, thank you for tuning in. We keep getting more listeners each week. Just had a big record week. Thank you all. Come follow us on Twitter at OOTA_pod, or give us a look on Patreon, patreon.com/OOTAP, OOTAP. So, until next time, remember, everything has an element of the unknown. Good night.